In a week that has seen discrimination that's been ignored for a long time hit the public domain in a big way, we're back to talk about the issue raised last week, which was the data around how COVID is impacting on women, and particularly women in the workplace. What I asked for was people's thoughts and ideas on how we address a potential calamity as we go back to work and find that many women have been pushed out of work or can't get into work and are disadvantaged. And thank you all for your fantastic responses, some of which were very funny, some of which were pretty dark, and some of which were very personal. I'm going to try and do them justice now. So the first area for us to focus on is the home. Here we are. And first up to give us their view is Alaric.
Us men have to change, and we have to change more, and we have to change faster.
I know a lot of you are nodding and agreeing with that, but also you're wondering, how do I achieve that? How do we make that possible? Here I would recommend Eve Rodsky's book Fair Play, which is fantastic, and she sent me her comments last week. The book is based on 500 interviews with couples about how they split the tasks and the thinking in their house. And in the last week, she's also done a survey asking people who's taken over the thinking during lockdown and COVID. And you won't be surprised to hear that she got hundreds of emails back saying me from women. But really interestingly, she also got an email from a man called James, and he said, sure, my wife's taken on all of the household responsibilities, but we didn't talk about it, she didn't ask, and now I'm marching to her tune and taking her instructions. So Eve's point is really clear. We have to talk about this stuff. And there are good ways of talking about it and bad ways. Her big thinking is around having conversations when cognition is high and emotion is low, i.e. no point in having the conversation when everybody's wired, there's laundry everywhere, the children have gone completely bananas, and there's nothing in the fridge to make a meal with. We have to have these conversations at sensible times. Eve's belief is that by resetting the systems in our house, we can rebalance things for the future. And as Alaric points out, that's really important.
We never had role models when we grew up, even where we had feminist mothers. We must become, amongst other things, the role model for future generations. Future generations at work and future generations at home.
Next up is business. And the real clash here is between homeschooling and working at the moment. And you will remember a few weeks ago, Pippa Wright, teacher and head teacher, sharing with us that we really must reduce the psychological pressure on ourselves to try and behave like teachers. But if schools could be not operating fully until November, according to the news in the last few days, which I know has made many of us want to lie down on the ground and weep, we do have to think about this stuff. Sarah Hesz has a view that actually businesses are going to have to see supporting the childcare as part of their core role.
They need to be thinking about how they can support their parent workers better. And the same way we think about healthcare benefits and businesses start thinking about childcare benefits, both are equally important to the well-being of their employees.
Number two is that employers need to be flexible. Happily for Vicky Stubbs, her employer is.
Fortunately, my ex and I are able to ensure that one of us can always work from home when schools do fully return to accommodate both school drop-offs and pick-ups. We'll be able to juggle that with some days in the office, and our employer has been exceptionally flexible in allowing us to do both.
But we know a lot of employers aren't and won't be. Verena reminds us that it's really important for employers to keep the flex options open when we return to work.
And make sure that you keep that default position of being able to work flexibly if it is humanly possible.
And Anna reminds us that if employers are only making adjustments for women and not men, they are contributing to the problem and potentially making it worse.
If businesses are offering support to working mothers but not working fathers, then they're part of the problem.
The final point is from Dan, who's thinking about power structures.
As in the past, now we've got the issue of who has access to the informal power structures. Who's having the casual conversations that actually set the agenda or that guide what the team manager, what the director of the organisation actually finds important to talk about. If you're leading a team or an organisation, just examine how those informal conversations are going and examine where your power structures might now lie as people working at home and are not seeing each other face to face.
And the final area is government, where somebody who needed to remain anonymous because of their job suggested that the UK needed to take a lot of input from other countries, looking at Italy and childcare bonuses, looking at what Denmark's done with education, and looking at what the Finnish have done with all-round thinking on these subjects. The big thing, though, that comes through in government, and we talked about it last week, is that we have to have women at the table. We have to put solo parents onto the agenda, and childcare has to be something that's accessible to everybody, not just those people who can afford it. Priya, who's a student, shares her views on that with us.
Boris just isn't prioritising the needs of people who aren't middle-class men. He's desperate to get the economy going, but he isn't providing for people who can't afford expensive childcare while schools are still closed, overlooking thousands of single working parents. There's also another double standard here. Imagine if an unmarried female PM was laughing in response to the question of how many men is enough, having had kids from several different men. There would be outrage.
It's really, really lovely to hear all these voices. Thank you so much for your contributions. I'm going to leave you with a man who frankly represents how I feel right now, which is someone being howled at by a dog who's forgotten to put their trousers on. Have a really, really lovely weekend.
Thank you very much to Christine.